Hey, what's going on YouTube? It is Kyle from HospitalityMD coming at you with another episode of the podcast presented right here on YouTube. Before we get started, you know the drill by now. Go down below, press subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up so more hospitality professionals can see this and enjoy our content. Now, our guest today is the king of the hospitality meme, Calvin Tilokee, most well known for his Instagram account at RevParblums, which has amassed 18,000 followers of hospitality professionals who love his humor. This episode, however, is no laughing matter. We are talking about, should you be in the hospitality industry? Is the industry right for you? And Calvin is going to help you understand that through some great stories and some insightful conversations. So tune in to see Calvin Tilokee on Hospitality MD. Calvin Tilokee, welcome to the Hospitality MD Podcast. So glad to have you on the show.
Thanks, Kyle. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you've got a lot going on, right? So I'm sure most of our listeners would know you as the meme god of hospitality from RevParblums on Instagram, which hilarious. You've really found a way to just be tasteful, have the right timing, and just execute on meme trends, hospitality stuff. Like, it's hilarious, and I think a much needed outlet for the hotel and hospitality industry. So you've got that going on. You've got your own podcast, Midlife Crisis. You've got a travel blog. You've got your own media agency, RevPar Media. What are you doing? Like, you've got so much stuff going on.
I know. I can't juggle actually, but I'm doing a pretty good impersonation in my professional life at the moment.
So yeah, I like to stay busy then.
Yeah, I definitely do. I work best when I'm working at something, or when I have a goal in mind and I've got a lot going on. I'm a person who kind of tends to get bored and stagnant when I've just I kind of learn something, and then if it's not going anywhere, if I don't got something else to keep me sparked, I tend to just get stagnant and bored with my work and stuff. So what I'm doing right now, honestly, it kind of overwhelmed me, and there are times where I'm like, I am doing way too much, like just focus on one thing. But you know what's good about it is with so many brands and so many different things going on, everything kind of has its own time. So sometimes you put a little bit more energy towards the podcast or the media stuff, or the memes I stay pretty consistent with, because that's where I started. That's where this whole thing got started, and that's where I probably still have the most fun, although the podcast is really getting up there with that. But yeah, I stay fairly consistent with that. I mean, like right now, travel is not a huge thing, right? So I'm not posting on my travel page as much as I may do in the future, or have in the past when I started it. So, definitely keeping busy. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, the ebbs and flows of kind of everything is certainly plays a role into it. And I guess, it's hard to get bored when you probably feel like you don't even have enough time in the day to keep up with all the things that you have going on. So good strategy on your part. And I gotta say, Calvin, I checked out kind of last time we talked, I caught like maybe 10 or 15 minutes of one of the Midlife Crisis episodes. I was geeked, my friend. That was funny.
Thank you, sir.
You guys are really a hoot. So I'm gonna have to start listening to that. And I'm not middle-aged, but I'm finding it to be absolutely hilarious. So definitely a podcast for those of all ages. I know you were saying it's kind of your passion project, but it's super funny.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we definitely call it midlife crisis. Again, we're all in our 40s, and but I think we're relatable to everybody. I think I myself, I'm pretty relatable. You know, I in the industry I work in, we work with a lot of people. I remember I was at a at an event for one of the our OTA partners a couple of years ago, and it was happy hour, and they had an intern who, well, they had three interns, and one of them was like, "Oh, I'm not drinking tonight." And I'm like, "Oh, how come?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm not 21 yet." And I'm like, "Are you serious?" You know, it's like it's to be in the same space with somebody from a time you barely even remember was eye opening. But I say that to say, you know, in the workspace, you're with people of all ages, you know, and I think working with people like that and fresh ideas, it kind of keeps you up to speed with things. It keeps you a bit younger. So, you know, we were able to, you know, I can relate with people of that age or people my own age. And, you know, on that podcast, we talk about everything. We'll talk about, you know, anything from movies to music to current events, and we just, you know, I think everybody will get a kick out of it. You don't need to be a middle-aged man to enjoy it. I put it that way.
Man, that story is so funny. I actually so I remember I was 18 at the time, and I actually went to this was like my first like business trip, if you will. It was actually to Hilton's front office academy. So I went from Chicago to West Palm Beach, and it was basically like I was a front desk supervisor at the time, but I just wanted to go because I thought it would be fun. So and it was, but it was like, you know, directors of front office from big box properties, you know, all over the country, your assistant directors, like people who have actually been established in their careers, not somebody who's currently enrolled in high school. Or I think I actually just graduated like a month before. So everybody, like, you know, I got there like a day or two early, and like I met a couple of people who were there, like actually taking the airport shuttle to the hotel at the same time. So we were like hanging out, and they didn't know how old I was or anything. So we get back and they're like, all right, let's go up to my room. And they start cracking open beers and stuff. And I didn't party in high school. I didn't do any of that. So I was like, got a Corona and I was drinking. I just so nauseous. I felt like shit. It was just, and then like once we got started with the program, you know, everybody was like, after class was like, let's go to the bars and hang out. And I'm just like kind of tagging along, but not really knowing what I was doing. And it was just, they took good care of me. It was super fun, but it was just very kind of similar situation. I think that really does go to show that, you know, especially in hospitality, whether it's with your guests and interacting with people from all over the world, or even within it, you go to a conference and there's somebody who under 21 and you're like, how did you even get here? But it's just the diversity of the people that you interact with in hospitality. It's certainly never a dull moment.
No, that's the good thing about our industry, where, you know, and I try to bring this across in my memes, and it's always been the driving force behind it, is we're all dealing with the same thing. You know, no matter where you are in this world, if you're working in hotels, we all deal with the same issues, the same front desk issues, the same GMs, the same relationships between sales and revenue. I don't care what hotel, pick one. We're all dealing with that same thing. But the great thing about hospitality, while you kind of know what to expect on a day-to-day, because we're dealing with people and individual people, that is always going to be a little different, right? Like you can go in, if you're working at the front desk, you know, today I'm likely going to deal with some Karen that's going to complain about something. You just don't know what that something is, because each person finds their own individual thing to get annoyed about. And you're like, just when you think you've heard it all, here comes another one. You know, so working with people.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's like you hit like a sweet spot with the memes, because it really is like the main part of hospitality, right? To your point, when you ask somebody, why do you love hospitality? Because every day is different. You never know what you're going to get. But despite one of the number one reasons why anybody would do it, there's always those red threads that kind of connect us all in the industry. And I think like, man, I've seen some other like hotel meme pages and other stuff, but I feel like you were like probably the first one, or the first big one, to really hit it right and kind of understand that, you know, everybody's going through a variation of the same thing, because at the end of the day, hotels are hotels, people are people. When you get somebody who, you know, just took a red eye to the hotel and, you know, shows up, no matter what the location, who it is, like the same variation on a scenario is going to play out.
Right.
But I want to ask you, Calvin, like, you're in practice, you've kind of come up in reservations and revenue management.
Right.
I think to a lot of us, just kind of pure ops people like myself, I think to myself, man, how boring is revenue management? But you're saying, you're somebody who kind of gets bored easily. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your come up in the industry and why revenue management for such a creative type of person? It seems almost like a juxtaposition, if you will.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question, because I think it's one of the misnomers about revenue management, and it's one that I had when I started. I've never been a strong math person, and revenue is all numbers, right? But along the way in my career, I was working as a reservations manager for a director of revenue who she explained it to me as you're trying to piece together a puzzle. You're taking all of these different things and trying to just create this perfect picture. And it really hit me. And she really tapped in more to the strategic and creative side of revenue management. And, some people explain it as, there's a part of revenue management that's a straight line. Then there's the other part that's very creative. And I definitely skew more to that creative side. I think you need a blend of both to be really good at it. I don't think anybody who's strictly just looking at numbers and, okay, we're going to do everything based on this trends in the numbers. There has to be a part of instinct and a part of strategy and creativity where you say, you know what, I know that this is typically what's happening, but right now what I'm seeing is a little different, and be willing to make that change and be willing to go away from just a strict analytics at times. And at the same time, you need the analytics. Like you can't just walk in today and say, you know what, I feel like dropping my rate of $100 and let's see what happens. You know what I mean? There needs to be some structure. And I think anybody who's going to be good at it, you need a blend of both. But I definitely skew more to the creative side of it.
That's pretty interesting. And I think, that let me just drop my rate $100 and see what happens. I think that was probably the GM in mid-April after they laid off the revenue manager and decided, let me try and see what I can do. That was kind of just a strategy. Let me just drop it $100 and see.
You have no idea how accurate that
is. So the analytics, right? We're starting to see all this, like, Hilton came out with global revenue optimization, and now we're talking about all this AI stuff. Like, I don't want to necessarily go down the rabbit hole of this technology talk, but you're the first person with a revenue background who I've really heard explain in a really well said way just about this kind of analytics line and then the creative line of it. So it makes me think that AI they don't have that creativity, right? The AI part is just the analytics. Do you think that revenue managers are obsolete now? Like, what do you think?
That's a great question. It's something that, has been discussed in the industry for a few years now, with, like you said, with the onset of all of these different systems. I personally just don't think that you can replace the human element of hospitality, even though obviously revenue management is not guest facing and we're a little bit, away from that, not a little bit, we're way away from that, but I just don't think that it can happen, because I've worked with a bunch of these systems, and yes, systems are great and they'll give you certain projections. I've never worked with any that are accurate. I've worked with one. I don't know if I should say it by name or not, but it was with
let's talk, let's do
it. You know what? Yeah, it was Marriott. I don't think anybody's listening to this is gonna be surprised if they work for Marriott that somebody would be complaining about their systems. And the name is slipping me right now. It's was it One Yield? What is that their new system, One Yield?
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, I think yeah. But I was when the first version came out, we decided, let's try the inventory optimizer, right? So this is supposed to be something where you just map your system, your Marsha system into One Yield, and just click a button and it will do all of your inventory management for you. So to make sure you keep straight line availability and all of this stuff, right? went through the trainings. We had people on conference calls to teach us how to do it. So we finally said, you know what, let's click the button and see what happens. I did that. I went out for lunch for an hour. I came back. We were oversold by 70 king type rooms for like 5 days in a row. And it was like, okay, this doesn't work. And luckily we were able to, I mean, it was like, we just treated it like they book run of house. So we gave them other room types, and, we figured it out. But these are the type of things that can happen with systems. And, I'm not here to downgrade the importance of systems. Again, like I said before, it's similar to the analytics part of the business. You need that. You need the systems. They do help. I really actually enjoy IHG systems with the hurdle points perform. Their system, that was the first one that I used that had a certain hurdle point. And I just like the way that works. It's a great way to yield your system to say, okay, now we're starting to inch up in demand. You know what? Let's push this up to a certain rate. And anything that falls below that will be blocked out. It's a much easier and sensible way to do it than with, say, Marriott systems, where you would have to go in now and close each one of these manually, right? As you raise your rate, if you don't want associate rates coming in, you've got to go and close out that pool. It doesn't do it automatically, So I think it helps. It will help any revenue manager be better once you know how to use these systems effectively. But to think that you could just, flip a switch and just get rid of human beings monitoring this stuff, I can't see that happening.
Yeah, because one of the things that I've heard from kind of proponents of this technology is, it's actually designed to take away the mundane part of the job. So maybe in your case, as you described, this like straight line of analytics and then the zigzag of creativity, maybe it just would eliminate that kind of straight line and leave you to worry about, peak periods and other kind of one-off type of either citywides or other types of things that are going to be different. But I think I ultimately would agree with you, as the conversation surrounding artificial intelligence closes in on the hotel industry, I see a future where like maybe 10, 15 years from now, where so many hotels have adopted this stuff that the like maybe in 6 months or a year, when a couple of hotels are doing this, we come check out the AI hotel. This is all the stuff we're doing. And then in 15 years, it's going to be like, come check in at the front desk with a human being and go back in time, like what a traditional hotel experience would be like. And it would almost be this kind of go back to that root of the magic of hospitality. And just when you walk into a hotel and you see bellman and doorman and you see the front desk, people ready to assist you, and you have people who are doing in-room dining and stuff like that, kind of just vibe. It's just a vibe and you can't replace it.
No, I love that. I mean, I might steal that in my marketing. That's great marketing. Come back to hotels where we have people. No, right. It's true. No, it's true, because I could certainly see, and I think you see that in a lot of industries where things skew so far away, and then if somebody goes back to basics, and it's like, hey, remember this? This is what this industry is all about. This is what hospitality is all about. It's about people, and similar to your question about replacing revenue managers, people talk about replacing all the front desk. You can just come in and go to a machine and get your key printed out, or a mobile check-in and all this stuff. And all that stuff is great. And I think especially now, with the pandemic that we've all dealt with and continue to deal with, you're going to be working with things. I think stuff like mobile keys, mobile check-ins, and reducing touch points, that's all important. And there's going to be a place for that going forward. But nothing is going to replace showing up into a building after a long flight and having a smiling face greet you, welcome you, and assist you and give you that hospitality. That's what the industry is all about. I don't know how you could go forward without having that.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is I feel like we've been very inconsistent as an industry historically. So we've almost, I think, pushed ourselves in this direction over time, because when you do get off of that long flight and you see somebody who has absolutely no business welcoming somebody to the hotel who's just there because
Right.
they've been there and that's just the way it's always been, it turns people off and they're like, man, I don't want to deal with this. I just want to go up to my room. But I think about like, okay, maybe your prototypical hotels, your Holiday Inn Express is going to be decked out and you're going to have all this stuff and you just come in because, not to say that there was never anything there to begin with, but it was always just meant to be kind of a transactional room and a shower type of experience. But when I think about like the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City, which is unfortunately closed down, and I think about the Palmer House here in Chicago that I'm actually looking at it right now out my window,
Awesome.
which has boards over the windows and,
Oh man.
like just this depressing stuff
These
where
iconic
these hotels
places.
are institutions of hospitality. These hotels are institutions of community. I'm sure, to take the Palmer House, for example, I'm sure this hotel has probably hosted enough meetings and conventions and had so much business down there to, employ the whole city over the years that the hotel's been around. So yeah, like maybe we see this kind of develop on like a larger scale with these prototype type of hotels, but I'd love to see, man, if I had the capital, I would buy up the Roosevelt or buy up the Palmer House and be like, let's bring some just old school hospitality back into the mix and just kind of, because why do people love going to hotels, right? If you think about why people who are staying, I'm sorry to keep talking crap about the Holiday Inn Express. I'm going to keep going back to that, but for the people who are going to be staying there, right? Maybe they just don't want to be there because you're forced to be there on business, or you're a construction crew that is being deployed to repair something and you're all staying there and it's just part of your routine. But when you consider your resorts or your urban kind of, these castles that are in the cities that people have for centuries have been cornerstones, they like staying there because there's actually a certain elegance and you just feel important and valued when you're walking around in there. And I don't know, I just don't see it. If we go too far one way, I will be saying a long permanent goodbye to the Palmer House and all these other great hotels around the country and the world.
I think there's always going to be a place for that. And I think we're both kind of on the same wavelength of being a bit of hospitality nerds. I know, we both kind of have it in the blood, right? And yeah, you're right. I mean, you're always going to have people that are showing up to a hotel because they have to. And I think a good example of that I thought of when you were just talking about like an airport hotel, right? Nobody's staying at an airport hotel because they want to, really. They're either there for business or you're a stranded guest or something like that. I mean, airport hotels are not a destination in and of themselves typically, right? And I'll tell you a quick story. I'll really shorten this because I go into this on my podcast. It's called on the You Got Served episode. The worst customer service experience I've ever had was for my wedding. We were flying from Newark, New Jersey to Hawaii, and I'll call them out. It was United Airlines at the time, which is Continental now. The absolute worst customer service experience I've ever had. I won't go into that whole story because it's a long one, but we didn't get on our flight from Newark, got delayed. We're flying standby the rest of the trip. So we finally get to Waikiki, and I got married on Molokai, which is the smallest Hawaiian island. So from Waikiki, you needed to take one of those little puddle jumpers and get over. Because they messed it up when they rebooked our flights, they never rebooked us on that puddle jumper. So now after 2 days of traveling to get to Waikiki, we weren't going to get to the next stop. So we stayed at an airport hotel. It was a Holiday Inn Express. So we're going to help out the brand here. And you know what? Obviously, I was in a shitty mood. I mean, I'm going to get married, and this is 2 days of traveling that I should have already been in Hawaii, right? So, but we get to the hotel, and you know what? I'm a stranded guest. I'm upset. I don't want to be here. This is not where I was intending to spend my night. But we got there. They took care of us. They gave us leis when we got in, and it was That's what hospitality is all about. Did it turn around my entire experience? No, but I remember that. I've been married for almost 14 years now. And I remember that experience. I remember that hotel. And that's what it's all about. I didn't have a ton of interactions with people. I wasn't looking to, as much as I am a people person. At that point in time, I needed no one. I just needed my bed and the shower. But it's that little touch. It was just the option of having that person there. That little thing made me feel a little bit better during that experience. So that is what hospitality is all about. You need to have that person around. That person, you can't just come in. If I had got there and just had to go to a kiosk, grab my keys and go to my room, God forbid that kiosk is not working. Something would have got broke in that lobby.
Well, right. And I think it's that. And then it's also like, if we, we talked a little bit about the beginning about like, what's going to happen today at the front desk. Maybe a Karen's going to come in and they're going to be upset about something. We need that. People need to vent to us. Like, it's not like, this is an important role. Like, we shouldn't be getting, and I get it. Nobody should ever be abused. Like, disclaimer. Okay. Right. We get it. Nobody wants to be abused. I understand it. I'll defend that to the end of, but like, if somebody needs to like, kind of use you as a punching bag for a minute, let it happen, turn it around. I view it as a game. Honestly, can I make this guest feel better? Like, this is like a challenge for me. Like, how upset is this guest? The more upset, the better. Can I turn this guest around? And I feel like it's just a beautiful thing, like, because people are going to be upset in life, in the world. But the reason why people are yelling at you, whether you're, a hotel front desk agent or, even like a bank teller or something, when you have a name tag on and you're supposed to be in some customer facing hospitality type of organization, the community of people is trusting you to just try and make them happy. Like, they just look at you and they think, this is somebody who's basically here to make me happy. And it's a huge responsibility. And we don't talk about that. We just talk about the transactional part of it, which is, and when that happens, that's why they say, okay, here's your kiosk, because we don't need you anymore, because all we ever trained you to do was to do the transaction, and you don't even give good service anyway. Not saying that's the case all the time, but certainly can be the case a lot of the time. We can commoditize a check-in, but we can't commoditize an individualized, personalized, beautiful experience.
You can't, and that's very well said. You really can't, and that's the thing. Hospitality will always be around those experiences, those interactions, and those memories. I mean, the best experiences I have traveling are all surrounded by something like that. The last trip I took before the world ended in 2020, I went to the St. Regis in Punta Mita, Mexico, and a fairly long trip for us. So I'm flying from New York to Atlanta, and then Atlanta all the way to Puerto Vallarta. And they told you when you book your reservation, they tell you when you exit, when you leave grabbing your bags, don't stop for those people. Those people that want you to stop and grab a margarita, and like, they're aggressive. So I'm going through, and these people, it was like I was LeBron James and I was getting off the plane. It was like, people are like all over you, and I'm like, get away from me, get out of here. So I get to the car, right? So we finally get to the hotel. They send a shuttle for you, and it's about a 45-minute drive. The guy couldn't be nicer. He's recommended places for us to eat. He gave me about 7 different types of tequila and mezcal that I should have while I'm there. You get to the hotel, you get out, you won't see your bag again until you're at the room. You get out, they give you a choice of a glass of wine or a margarita. They take you to the lobby, which overlooks the beach and the pool. You're sitting there, you sign in, check in, they take you on the golf cart to your room. And it's like, I don't know who doesn't enjoy that, but there'll always be a place for that in this business. That's what it's all about, is that attention to detail, that level of service, where they know your name when you show up.
I swear to God, Calvin, I literally was just like, a movie was playing in my head of your entire experience. And like, first of all, like, I will be waiting for the day that I get to that I have the opportunity to stay at, a 5-star resort in kind of one of these international locations or tropical location, because that sounds really, really nice and certainly irreplaceable.
It's fantastic. I can't recommend that hotel more. It was really good, and the service in Mexico is incredible. And it wasn't just at the hotel. Every restaurant we went to in the area was fantastic. They really nail service down there. They get it. And after my experience almost 14 years ago for my wedding, it became very clear. And this is not everywhere. This is certainly not painting with a broad brush here, but in this country, our level of service is falling behind in hospitality. When you go to Mexico, you go to Europe, and you just see where their level still is at, the way they pay attention to everything. And it doesn't even need to be the fanciest hotels. I mean, Intercon is a nice hotel, but it's certainly not, Ritz-Carlton's and St. Regis. It's a nice,
it's your 4-star, full service kind of flagship of the brand hotel, just like your Hilton or your Marriott.
Yeah, and it's very nice, but again, like you said, it's not going to be, your top of the pops. But we went there for an anniversary to London, the Intercon Park Lane. I mean, unbelievable experience, unbelievable service. And it's just, I feel like they're at a level where they get it. They still, it's more ingrained in the culture or something like that. I'll figure out another thing to do, and maybe I'll do some research and go around the world and figure out how and why this still happens. But I'm telling you, when you travel around, you really get it. And it actually reminds me of a story. A hotel I worked at in New York City, it was marketing themselves as a 5-star boutique hotel, and we'd always get crushed by customers from the UK on our TripAdvisor and things like that, and not doing anything particularly wrong, but in their mind, not meeting that 5-star service. And at the end of 2019, I went to Scotland. I went to the Glen Eagles Hotel, which is, I went for my birthday. So when you guys look it up, you'll realize, I mean, this is old school white glove service. Like they've had G8 summits at this property. This thing is up there. It's, world renowned golf course and everything. But you get there, and we did an afternoon tea, and then we had an excursion booked after that to go for a carriage ride. We were running a little close on time, so we asked them, can you pack up, our sandwiches and that stuff? And they were like, no problem, not a word. We got back that night, it was in the room, nicely bow tied and everything, perfect. So this is the level that when you say 5-star service to somebody from the UK, that's what they're thinking about. Now, the hotel I was working at, we had a guest that stayed there from the day it opened. At this point, the hotel was about 7 years old. I mean, this guy stayed weekly for 7 years. We got to be talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over that course of time. Clearly came in to do business, worked all day, got back to his room. And at some point, the hotel went from regular in-room dining, like with silverware and plates, to to-go bags. So his only request was, I want to eat on a real plate when I get back to my room. When I order my in-room dining, I just want to eat on a real plate. Just bring it up. He's like, it doesn't even need to come on the plate. Just bring up a plate with it. I'll plate it myself. But I mean, going back to your point before, it's how simple of a request is that? That he's not being a Karen. He's not making a scene. This is just, listen, guys, I travel a lot. I probably eat out of a box all day for breakfast and lunch. I'm working all day. When I come back to my room, I just want to pretend like I'm having a real meal. We dropped the ball on that multiple times. I remember at least 5 or 6 times that happened in the year I was at this property. The guy ends up leaving. He gave us that many chances, and he said, you know what, I can't take it. This is ridiculous. And went to stay at the hotel next door. And then people wonder why someone would say, well, this is not 5-star service. That's not even 2-star service. If we were staying at your limited service brand and you ordered in-room dining and you asked for something that simple, you'd expect to get it.
That breaks my heart, to be honest with you, hearing about that. And that poor guest, again, with just a reasonable act, like make him feel like a human. God damn it! Like, excuse my language, just like it's like I just want to just take the individuals responsible. I mean, and just wake them up. Like, people are not, like, I don't know. It's like we're just desensitized to people's humanity when they travel. Like, as soon as they become a guest, it's just all of a sudden it's, we're kind of in a power trip mode, and it's just whatever leverage we can hold over somebody. I think we were talking about it the other day, that guest who wants a room away from the elevator and away from the ice machine, or just something like, I'm a light sleeper, like, and then we're going to laugh about it afterward. And just, we're going to make fun of this person. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's all good for humor. Like, you find a way to make those situations that are red threads and kind of connect everybody through that humor aspect with the memes. But I've never seen a meme that you created that said, how the stupid guest with the request for a room next to away from the elevator, like, how dumb is that? Like, but that's actually the dialogue that's taking place in a lot of hotels behind closed doors. And I think it's just severely damaging. And that kind of dialogue and it being co-signed by management is kind of what leads to a guest not getting a plate when they just, all they want to do is feel like they're in their home, and they want to just feel human again and not feel like, again, like you said, it really kind of struck a chord with me when you said, I've been, this guest is probably saying, I'm eating out of the box, too. And then when I get back to the hotel, I just want to have a plate. That's like, you're eating dog food all day. Like, give this man a meal for God's sakes.
And that's the thing. I think people, I think we forget to put ourselves in the other person's shoes sometimes. And listen, I get it. I've started out at the front desk. I know what kind of beatdown that can be. And I know a good portion of the guests can be real jerks, but I think when you have the spirit of service, you don't let that derail you from helping out the next guy, and it's, again, put yourself in this guy's shoes. He travels every single week. The guy probably has a family, he's probably got a spouse, kids, or even if not, just imagine you had to travel every single week for work and spend 2, 3, 4 nights outside of your home where you're eating on. I've done that. I task force in Los Angeles at the tail end of 2018 into early 2019. That's not fun, especially for an extrovert like me. I don't know anybody, right? So I'm working at the hotel all day, and then they all go home, and I'm stuck in an empty hotel room by myself. You can only talk to people, but so late because of the time difference. So by 8:00, I'm there like, okay, what do I do now, right? And I've gone to many restaurants and had to eat by myself and things like that. And it's like, maybe you just want a nice in-room dining experience where put on a movie, you've got a plate of food, and you try to make it like homey a little bit, and you can't do that for that guy. And what really gets me about it is he didn't make a stink. This is a guy who's put hundreds of thousands of dollars into that hotel, and this is where the revenue management part comes on. It's like, you understand how much money this guy's worth to you, to this building, and you're not going to get him a plate? I'll bring it up myself if you want. Okay, like it's insane. But I mean, forget that. Looking at guests as dollar signs, it's just, this is a guy on the road who just wants to have a decent meal in his room after being away from his home, working all day. He just wants to eat on a plate. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, you're like, we can talk about it however it makes sense to you, right? If you're only in it for the business part, like, let's just talk about the money. Like, this guest is worth this many dollars. If you're in it for the human aspect, the guest, like, just have some empathy a little bit. It's like situations like that, which is just one example of something that is just rampant essentially in the industry, unfortunately. It kind of just, it goes to show maybe where we're at, but it gives us an opportunity to improve. Given your experience in hotel management, given your experience and just kind of having a pulse on the hotel community, what would you say, any advice that you have for somebody who's starting out, who finds themselves getting bogged down because, the guest is difficult, or, they don't have to, the 9 to 5 hours don't apply, or what would you say to somebody who feels like they're struggling right now?
I mean, that's a good question. I think um, I had a VP of operations once just say, people either have the spirit to serve or they don't. And I think you need to understand if this is for you. And I'm not going to be unrealistic and think that every person that works in a hotel is going to be gung ho about hospitality, right? Not that's unrealistic. Some people just get a job to get a job, you know what I mean, and just paying the bills and whatever it is. But I think it really just comes down to something I said before. Try to put yourself in that person's shoes, right? And I'm not talking about the ones that come in and want to unload on you because they had a rough day. We need to smile, grin, and bear it, but I'm not saying go out of your way for those guys. But like the example I just brought up, or something like me when I was on that, my wedding trip and got stranded. You know, little things can really turn around the whole experience. And I think if you need to determine if you're one of these people who likes to please others, who wants to be hospitable and wants to create that memory and that experience for a guest. Um, it doesn't have to be anything big. I can give another example that I've always talked about in my hotels when we talked about guest service. And I always say nobody really wants to hear that from the revenue guy. You know what I mean? Because everybody looks
Right.
at us like, what do you know? You don't deal with guests or whatever. But I have been there. I've dealt with guests. I started at the front desk. I am a guest. I travel and I know what I like. And I also consider myself somebody who's a hotelier, somebody who is in the hospitality industry. No matter what role you're in, you play a part in that, right? But we were in Paris, and unpopular opinion, I didn't love Paris. I didn't really, it's not my vibe, you know. But the best thing about my trip happened at the hotel, the Renaissance Trocadero. We got there on a Friday evening, and we booked this. They have these little buggies, these little cars with no roof. They take you out in the city at night, so you can see the Eiffel Tower lit up, and you see all the sights, just straight from the roof. Really cool tour. But this car was so small, I was trying to take a selfie and get us all in the picture, right? The bellman at the hotel, who was probably about 50 yards away from this happening, he sees me, he takes off like a jet, runs up to me, grabs my phone, and takes a picture. You know, does that cost anybody anything? That's not a big deal. But this is years ago. This is at least 6 years ago now, and I still remember it because it was just his desire to help out the guest was just it was just there, right? He didn't get it probably special for that. I did mention it on a review because it was like, again, we get so used to, I think, in this country, and I think that's part of the difference I'm trying to explain is here that may or may not happen, and if it does happen, it's like, whoa, look at that. But should it really be like, oh, let's make a big deal about that? That shouldn't really be a big deal. That's how it's supposed to be. Let's try to help the guest out.
Right. Yeah. Cause like if you were to go to like any decent hotel, you go to their TripAdvisor or their Google reviews and you go down the line, you look at what are like the raving reviews. It's probably for somebody doing something that would be like a common practice in another hotel overseas in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the one of my hospitality mentors, Craig Poole from the DoubleTree in Reading, Pennsylvania, he models his hotel after the hotels of Singapore, which have one employee per room, and it's just this whole grand
Mm-hmm.
experience. And he wants to bring that, and even at a DoubleTree by Hilton hotel in one of the poorest cities in the country, he's trying to bring that, which I think is just so admirable because people have a right to experience this sort of thing. And that was one thing that he said, especially being in a poor city, he's like, he says that he's had people who have started working for him or even guests within this community who've never used cloth napkins before, because that's just, and we don't even consider that. So then you take somebody and you bring them into an environment where they can actually be like, wow, so this is what luxury is like. This is what hospitality is like. This is the power of what you get when you actually give to somebody. Because I think that's another thing. I mentioned on a recent YouTube live that I did about the damaging effects of individualism in our culture in America and how that plays out in hospitality. Because, one of this article that I was reacting to is saying that the guest expectations are dangerous and are encroaching on our humanity. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in my entire life. I was like, we ultimately, at the end of the day, are servants, and we should be honored to have the opportunity to show somebody what the power of giving is like, because that person, it really is a ripple effect. I believe that when you experience hospitality, it makes you want to give it a little bit. And I do believe that kind of pay it forward element, even though you're not saying pay it forward, it's, if you make somebody smile and they walk out of your hotel or they walk out of your restaurant, they walk out of wherever you are, they're going to smile to the person next to them. It's corny. I know, I get it, but it's real. That impact is real on humanity. Like, we should be using hospitality and service as a way to unite us instead of dividing us over ice machine and elevator requests and all this bullshit. Like, why do we care so much? Like, let's just do the right thing for people. I'll never understand why we've gotten to the point where it's become rampantly difficult for us to take care of somebody.
Yeah, I think it's part of a larger conversation, but I think in general, there's just less and less empathy out there, and people, we've become a lot more divided. Everybody's in their corners and everything is black and white, especially, I spend a lot of my time on social media, and it's like, we just had Super Bowl, right? Like, oh, I like Tom Brady. Oh, so that means you hate Belichick? No, calm down. You know what I mean? Most, like with 99% of things in life, the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? But everybody wants to put you in a camp now, and it's like, it's either this or that, and everybody's so argumentative. I think people look at life very binary now, and obviously I'm generalizing. This doesn't mean everyone, of course, but I think there's more and more of that. That becomes more and more prevalent. You look at TV, you look at the news, and everything is, you're either left or right. It's like, most people aren't one thing. In some situations you feel strongly about this, but it's put in a different situation, it might be different, and it's circumstantial. And I just, to your point about people taking this action towards guests, I think it's just less and less empathy. If this person comes to the desk and they have a complaint, it's like, oh God, so they're so annoying. But it's like, okay, it might be annoying to you, but you know what? They may have a point where they're coming from. And I would venture to say most guests genuinely are not there to have a bad time.
Certainly not. Right. You're not going to find somebody like that.
No. And when this really started to hit home for me is when we started doing MOD shifts. And obviously, as the revenue mind, I look at things in percentages. And we have to do these MOD shifts where you spent the whole weekend in the hotel. And I realized this property was about 447 rooms. I had 3 rooms that didn't stop bothering me the whole weekend. All right. One guy comes to me the first night, Friday night. He comes to me with a plastic cup of what turned out to be fuzz, like off of your sweater. He tells me, "Oh, I've got bed bugs." And I'm like, "Sir, I know what bed bugs look like. These are not bed bugs." But you can't just say that to a guest. So I'm trying to play the game, and I'm like, "Okay, sir, I'm sorry. Well, we can't get anybody to come in tonight to take a look at the room. Would you like to change rooms?" No. You think you have bed bugs and you don't want to change rooms? I mean, that's a dead giveaway, sir. But anyway, he's harassing me the whole weekend, and it was somebody else who wanted a discount or whatever. And I spend most of my time dealing with that. And then it hit me. It's like, well, what about the other 444 rooms of people that came in, had a good stay, and left? What do we do for those people? Right? Absolutely nothing. These three people, we're going to spend all of our energy trying to recover, trying to give them something for free so they don't give us one negative review. What about trying to get a positive review from the 99% of people that came in and had a good time, wanted to have a good time, and came in, paid their bill, left without a peep? Do we follow up with them? Do we take a note of when their birthday is so next time they come, or when they do rebook, are we thanking them with something? No, we're not. Most hotels I've been at don't take that step. And again, looking at this in percentage, most of your guests are here. They're just coming in, having a good time, paying the bill and going home. They're going to stay quiet about it for the most part, but we spend all this energy trying to change the 2% of people that may not give us a 5-star. And then you're trying to change this 1-star into a 5-star. That's not going to happen. Those people, you're lost, right? I'm not saying don't recover. I'm not saying don't try to appease, but do what you got to do to get them to not leave you a 1 and just move on from it. They're never going to have a good time. You've got this huge pool of people that are enjoying it, are at least not enjoying it. Do something nice for them to turn a 3 or a 4, something that's okay, you met my expectations, to a 5. Do something special for them. Send them a bottle of wine. It's like,
well, just like talking to them, right? And actually finding out, because like a lot of the times what we do is we wait for the guests to come down and complain
before we engage with them.
There and we just, we're just kind of waiting. Okay. And, you give the keys to the guest, and then, 12 minutes later, when you see them turning around the corner, you kind of get that flutter in your heart, like, oh shit, what's the problem now?
Like, oh, it's time for my break.
But you wait, right, exactly. But at that point, you waited too long. In general, you waited too long, and that guest may have something negative to say, but the way that I look at it, if somebody is going to be naked, doing their most intimate things, sleeping, bathing, like all these, eating, like just living, surviving in the environment that you've created, like it's so vulnerable and intimate. Like they have a damn right to tell you what their preferences are. They have a right to have an opinion about the accommodations that you're providing. Like I've worked at hotels that are supposed to be luxury properties where a guest walks in and a carpet tack goes through their foot when they walk through the door. And then we're complaining because, oh, what about this huge big deal? It's like, this was just negligence to the utmost. And good on the guests for screaming and yelling, like good for them for telling us that we really, really screwed the pooch on that situation. We really, really fucked up, excuse my language, but we really did. Like we deserve to get berated because of our negligence. Like I have no problem. Like if we really did something wrong, like just tell us how bad it is. And I want to make sure, that's why like as an MOD or front office manager or whatever, I'm like, I really wish that I could just grab the owner of the hotel right now and put the owner in my shoes. Not because I mind getting yelled at, because I don't, but just so they can hear from the guest's mouth how their apathy and just being out of touch with everything that's going on in the hotel has resulted in a human being being injured, or their wedding being ruined. Like in your case, right? Like if you could take, I don't know who the CEO of United was at the time, but take Scott Kirby, who it is now with United, and be like, you guys just don't get it. And maybe one day that would wake somebody up. But again, I think you are right, and your VP that you quoted was right. Sometimes if you just don't have the spirit to serve, it's like, I mean, I do think that there's an innate nature of people who are, actually, as you said, gung-ho about it. And again, it's unrealistic to think that everybody would be. But you at least need to have the person in charge of the hotel who's gung-ho so that they can try and inspire everybody. I mean, because you have leaders of hotels that, like, no wonder nobody else cares, because they don't care at all about the guest.
Exactly. And I think you hit it on the head. I think your leaders need to. You can't expect every housekeeper, houseman, GSA, F&B individual to have that bigger, desire and that bigger vision of hospitality. Not everybody's going to be like that, but your leadership needs to be. And one thing that I hope coming out of this pandemic, as the industry continues to pick back up, is use this as an opportunity to restock with better items. You know what I mean? Like these people, we pretty much, most hotels have cleared the decks because we just couldn't afford to keep people on. When you start bringing people back, find those people, make them your leaders, and then yes, okay, you're going to have your line level staff that may or may not be there, but then they can implement that. And even if it's just a checklist, you know, the person executing may or may not know the bigger picture, may not have this bigger feeling of trying to service the guests, but you know, you can impart that on them. And it needs to be genuine. I mean, I've had front office managers talk a great game, you know, but when it was time to execute, they don't do anything with these people. So it needs to be genuine, and it needs to really be the person who wants to interact with people, be, you know, a people person, you know, service. It's like, you know, I know you and I are on the same wavelength, and it's frustrating because I don't think I've ever had a front office manager like you. We would have rocked it. You know what I mean?
Because, right. And I've never had a GM like me, which has been frustrating for me throughout my career, because I'm like, why am I the only one who gives a shit around here? Like, does anybody else care? And it's truly frustrating. And that's why the people who do care will leave if they notice that nobody else cares, because it's just frustrating.
No, it is. And at least you're an ops. They'll listen to you. Nobody wants to hear the dorm tell you this. You know, they're like,
well, you know, it goes to show. Right. Well, and you know what, honestly, I think a lot of us are guilty of that, because in my experience, like the fact that you know, going back to this plate story with the guests, like the fact that you even were aware that was happening, I think is kind of just a testament to, like you said, you're like, I'm a hotelier, I'm a hospitality person, like I'm in this, I'm not just, you know, whatever your role is, you still play a part in the machine of providing something for the greater good of the guest and for the people of the community. But the revenue managers who I've dealt with, and I think it's just around the industry, again, it's just kind of standard. That's why there's these stereotypes out here. Are like the last revenue manager I had, my most distinct memory of her is her walking in to the lobby and pointing at a piece of paper on the floor and telling the bellman, hey, there's a piece of paper on the floor right here. We don't want anybody to see that. I'm just like, you know, that's really, you suck. You suck for that.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is the first job I ever had, I was working at the front desk, and we had this very old school GM. And it was a very similar thing. I was walking past the desk. He was coming opposite direction. And he looked at the floor and then looked at me. I hadn't noticed there was something on the floor. And I don't know if I must have made a face. I must not have been able to control my reaction. And he just looked at me, and then he just bent down and picked it up. But it was kind of like, dude, are you serious? Just pick up the paper. And if you want me to, at least ask me, you know, at least ask. But it's like, I'm going to look at the floor, then look at you and expect you to pick it up. I was like, what is this guy's deal? You know, but
like, what kind of mind control are you trying to do right
now? Like this ain't Star Wars, you know. Use the Force, use your voice. Okay, I can understand you. But you know what? If you're going to be that rude to your employees, how would he be with guests, right? Now, you know, this all goes back to, and there's a lot that goes into providing that service. But you know, why would you now expect me to be hospitable to guests that walk through the door if I'm being treated like that at work?
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. And then, you know, it's how many times have you been standing there? There's a huge line forming, and the, you know, director of operations or the GM walks through and literally like excuses himself through the snake of people trying to get to like the office door with their head down, just, you know, don't see my name tag, like trying to make their way to to whatever their escape route is. Like, oh my God, I can't be with these guests because I'm not really in the hospitality. I'm a fake. I'm just in the ownership relations industry. Like, it's so common, and it's so crazy. And I think, you know, again, like, I think, you know, I want to make sure that we can get you onto the call. So I guess closing sentiments, right? We've got a lot of work to do. To get ourselves back to where we need to be. I definitely am inspired by your tales of travel to Europe and Mexico, and I don't have much international travel experience, so I look forward to experiencing it so we can take these lessons and try and apply them, because it's not that nobody's doing it. It's just that we're struggling a little bit right here in the U.S.
Yeah, I think we just need a refresher, and I'm good, by the way. We can keep going.
Okay.
I'm fine. Yeah. I think it's I don't want anybody to leave this and say, oh, he's shitting all over the U.S. hospitality industry. It's not about that, but we certainly is a level of improvement. And again, I mean, if you look at us by comparison to Europe, especially, we're a young country, right? These are countries that have been doing this for centuries. They're very well established. It's more ingrained, and I think there's certainly room for improvement. And I think anybody who doesn't think that is just has the blinders on. I could talk about travel all day. And another hotel I went to is called Il Salviatino. It's my favorite hotel in the world. It's in Florence. And that, you want to talk about 5-star, that's how it's done. It's a home of an old military person. This is like from the 16th century. They renovated this thing, turned it into a hotel. Each room is different, and about 13, 15-foot ceilings. But what's great about it is you walk around, you don't really see the staff, but the second you need something, they're right there. You walk past the front desk. If you linger, there's no one at the desk. It's just a little, like an office desk when you get into the hotel. Linger for half a second, somebody will be like, they run right out. It was, for me, it was a perfect embodiment of not hovering, but being there anytime you needed something. And my wife and I, we wanted to just have a glass of wine out on the terrace one night, and we go out there. I was willing to come in and grab the drinks. I was like, hey, let me, I went to the bar. He's like, sir, don't worry about it. We sit down, he brings the drinks out. He brings like a whole board with food and cheese and stuff. He brings us blankets because it was chilly. And it's like, we didn't ask for any of that. We didn't ask for any of that. You know what I mean? But these people want to sit out, look at overlook Florence, look at the stars, hang out, and this is what they're going to want, without even having to ask for it. And
blankets, man, that really gets me.
Yeah, that was the key, because it was like they just knew. We're American. We weren't used to their weather at that point, and they were like, hey, you know what? We got you. And the fact that you can get things like that without even having to speak a word about it shows these people are in tune. Now, I don't know if the guy who brought that out ever wants to be more than a bartender or a waiter, or he has this huge vision of hospitality like we do, but he knew enough to know, hey, you know what? These are two people enjoying their vacation. How can I make this comfortable for them? How can I make this better? Without even having to be prompted by anybody. I didn't see a manager nudge him and say, do that. He just did it, and that's where we need to get to. We need to get back to this thing of stop trying to demonize every guest and think that they're complaining or asking for too much, or you didn't pay for that. It's, again, I would fall into that 95% of people who's going to come. I'm probably not going to leave a review. I'm not a big guy for doing that, but I'll come and I'll enjoy it and I'll leave, right? I'm not going to be that 3% who's going to whine and complain all the time,
Right.
And that's where I think that's where the shift needs to happen. Those kind of little things. And we need to do more of that for the people who come, have a good time, and never say a word, because regardless of what you think, most of our guests fall into that category. They're not coming into wine.
Well, and right, even if they do have a problem, what does complaining do? It wastes their precious time that they have on vacation. That's finite.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the front desk, when a guest has an issue, they're weighing the complaining route, and they're weighing that with just kind of dealing with whatever the issue is that they're experiencing. And a lot of times, and I think maybe some of our more travel guests are probably accustomed now, and they're trained that if you go and complain at the front desk, it's basically a Russian roulette of what's going to happen. And most of the time you might just say, let me just deal with this minor or mid-tier issue rather than going and complain about it, because I value my time more than that. But this hotel that you're talking about, right? This is it's like a house, right? So it's probably what,
Mhm.
10, 15 rooms.
I
Small,
think it's like 14 rooms.
and then you've got like a small, like the lobby is just more like an entryway, right? You don't even have a,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of like this luxury that's not like in your face, like the one in Scotland, the Grand,
Right.
the Green
Glen Eagles.
Glen Eagles, excuse
Yeah.
me. Yep. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean, that
maybe
place is like a
not
castle.
necessarily right. So it's
Right.
not like you're that type of extreme of luxury, which has its place, but it's this when nobody's looking, a bartender brings out some blankets and
Mhm.
basically tucks you guys in outside with a glass of wine. Like
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
beautiful, man. It's so like this
Yeah.
so makes me feel good to hear a story like that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's still there. It's still there, and that's the point I wanted to drive home by telling these stories is we need to get back to that as the industry everywhere, and I think we need to focus on creating experiences and creating memories. Like none of these things that I've said, not one of them costed anybody any money. Running out to take a picture for me, bring me a blanket. These are not things that are going to stick out on the overnight report. Like, you comped this guy for what? Or you gave him $100 bottle of wine? No, it was just little things, paying attention and trying to create a good experience for the guests. And again, don't get me wrong. Like I said, you have people that are going to come in. They come in to have a bad time. They're coming in saying, hey, how can I get this room free this weekend? And you know what? Do what you got to do with those people. But I'm not going to believe that the majority of our guests are that. They're not.
Right. To me, that's the cost of doing business. You know what? Just stop digging your heels and just comp the room. Like that's usually my approach. Like if somebody is really that adamant wants to waste their time, okay, you know what? You're gonna get tonight's rate comped, and I'm gonna go take care. Okay, you're good. Now I'm gonna go take care of the guests that are here for the right reasons, and you just
Right.
move on. You don't let the negativity bog you down, and then you just forget about it, and it's over, and it's done with, and that's it. And it's time to take care of the rest of the guests.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Exactly.
well, Calvin, thanks for being here, man. Really, really great dialogue, great conversation. I think definitely a lot of value provided to our listeners and hopefully to your audience as well. So for our audience listening who wants to get a hold of you, we'll be putting your Instagram links for Rev Parlums here in the show notes for today. We'll definitely maybe after you guys are done listening to us, we'll let you go and listen to the Midlife Crisis podcast. We'll put that
Check
link
it
as
out.
well. So it's part of your podcast consumption. Yeah, Calvin, I got to say one more thing. I think we got to hear more from you on like these kind of topics. Like you have such a strong opinion on it. Your memes are great, but I want to hear more from you on these subjects like we discussed today. I think it would another strong voice in the mix would certainly help out the industry.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I appreciate you saying that. But it's funny. I am actually exploring partnering with some people, maybe about doing a more hotel focused podcast. So you and I will chat.
Yeah,
We'll stay
let's
in touch.
talk, man. Yeah, that
Mhm.
sounds great. And I think we vibe. We can figure something out. So
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
well, Calvin, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. See you later. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure again to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and on all social media platforms. And be sure to follow Calvin Tilokee at Rev Parblums and connect with him on LinkedIn and all other platforms. We hope you enjoyed today's video. We will see you next week.